and we're at the Kearney Demonstration Rain Garden, and today we'll be talking with Rocky Steinbrink, Dan Lillis, and Allison Klein. So Rocky, tell me a little bit about how you got involved in the project and about the background of the project.
Dan Lillis with the City of Kearney and I have talked about having a demonstration garden that could explain the rain garden concept and how throughout the City of Kearney the areas can be improve the water quality. I have a landscape garden center here in Kearney, Nebraska. We've always been involved with water quality and help the environment to make sure that things get better for not just for today but in the future. And this area seemed to fit good. It's a city-owned piece of property. It has some drainage that runs into it, and so we thought this would be a great idea to create a garden for demonstration. As you can see behind us, we've done that. We went through some research to try to figure out which plants would be good. We put a plan together. We got a lot of great people involved with the extension, with the City of Kearney, with the City of Kearney Foundation, the Kearney High School. It's really worked out well, and so then all of a sudden we started to get the ball rolling in the right direction. And last year, last summer, we had a group come together, and so it worked out pretty good. And we had some kids from Kearney High help us with the planting, so the education side of things really stepped up. So we were quite pleased, and so that's where we are today.
Well, this area itself is about 3 acres is what drains to it. The distance from one end to the other is about 250 feet. There is less than a 0.7% slope, so water is very slow going through here, allowing for good infiltration and percolation. And on top of that, at a very slight slope, we have vegetation and mulch that slows it down even more. But when it comes to rain events, you need a substantial rain event to cover all this area and to get it to drain here. Because it's so flat, and because we have a lot of native vegetation which absorbs it in order to grow. They bale it, so they do get some work out of it. It's not everything comes to this location. Water comes from this lot here, ends up in this detention cell. At the end of the detention cell on the east end, there is a graded area inlet, and we have it protected by riprap so the mulch does not get into it. It'll accept water, no mulch, and no other debris. Once it gets into that system, the stormwater conveyance system for the city, it goes underneath the railroad street here, underneath the railroad, and into an open ditch on the other south side of the railroad, which then flows into the bike trail area, the canal, the Kearney Canal, and eventually goes into the Platte River.
Can you explain kind of what the city either loaned to the site or did to prepare the site for the rain garden?
Well, we attempted to do a site preparation with one of our big maintainers, but that wasn't working because it's too big for this space. So Rocky Steinbrink's landscaping company came out with the finer maintainers and got the area tilled up really nicely and more finely than our huge maintainers for streets could do.
So what are some of your top plant standouts that are doing really well out here in that year that they've been planted?
Well, as you can see as you pan across here, the grasses, because we've had a hot summer, the grasses seem to be doing real well. Some of the favorite plants I have in here are what they call the Joe Pye weed, which has a little purple flower to the top, really creates a nice little bulbette of a flower on top. Really, really pretty. A couple weeks ago they were in full bloom. They worked really well. The rutabaga, which is a gold sturm, really pops some summer color. Normally when some of the annuals and things like that are done blooming through other people's yards, you look at some of these perennials and they really start to pop. So between the grasses and the Joe Pye weed and the rutabaga, they're some of my favorite as far as that goes.
Okay, the project partners we had several. We had Steinbrink Landscaping. There was City of Kearney, of course. We had Kearney Public Schools Foundation. We had just the basic Kearney Public Schools, and we had Nebraska Extension, and each one performed a significant part. Well, this is public land. It's the city's right-of-way adjacent to the railroad street here and La Crosse. It is adjacent also to Rocky Steinbrink's property here to the north of it. And Rocky, understanding that the way this looks impacts his property and business, and he has taken a substantial, if not the only role in maintaining it. That was one of the the caveats was the city would not maintain it once it was established, so Rocky is doing that. Part of the grant does provide him funding for 3 years of maintenance, but I'm very sure that he will continue to maintain it even after that because of its proximity to his property and his business.
Rocky, can you give us a little bit of an idea on the maintenance of these plants?
Sure. As I mentioned, we installed these last summer, basically. We went through some initial watering to make sure they got established the way we think they should. But as far as the maintenance, fine. We go through maybe once or twice a month and pull a few weeds if necessary. We don't like doing any spraying in a rain garden area just because of potential of what might be there. So we do a little bit of hand, but it's really been very minimal. The key on that was from the design standpoint that the plants would grow together and fill out the areas, so then that way there's not as much open spots. And so it'll take a couple seasons, but as it goes that'll get less and less. So like I said, we go through about once or twice a month, pull a few weeds, and that's really about our major maintenance of. And then if Mother Nature can throw some rains our way, that just helps with the watering. But if we need to, we can supplement it, but so far we haven't had to worry too much about it.
So what have been the biggest headaches or the biggest problems that you've had out here?
One of the biggest problems is last year when we installed this, we had a lot of rain, and so there was a lot of moisture in that. And then this year, it's been the opposite. It's been bone dry in that. So as far as headaches go, it's been mostly the water. You know, it's a demonstration rain garden. We're supposed to see water drain into it. We've just not had very much, but they're getting well established. What little rains we had in the spring helped for 2020, but otherwise in that. But overall, it's really not been that big of a headache. It's just been a little bit of maintenance, watching the water. Hopefully the rains help us here this fall. It's supposed to cool down temperature, but otherwise than that, it's been really maintenance free.
Can you talk to us about community involvement with your MS4 plan?
The City of Kearney operates a stormwater management plan that is created so that it allows the city to comply with a state permit, a state stormwater permit. And within that city's stormwater plan, we have public education and public involvement. And as part of that, we have a 4-person steering committee that consists of professionals throughout the City of Kearney. We have had city councilmen, we've had NRD representatives, we've had teachers from UNK, teachers from Kearney High School. Like I mentioned, NRDs from different districts, Tri-Basin as well as Central Platte. So it's an opportunity for me to describe the stormwater plan to each of these professionals so that it kind of addresses stormwater management in their field, or if they have questions, they can ask. If they have suggestions for improving or have comments to better understand it, I can answer them. They're on there for 1 year. It's a 1-year rotation, and after their year is up, they are responsible for finding some other member to help continue this. And then I approach the other member. We establish every 3 months we have a meeting. To get this all started up, we wanted to get an educational aspect into this as well, so we talked with Allison Butcher, and we got her and her science class involved to do a couple things, to get curriculum for her classroom instigated with the benefits of stormwater treatment facilities, as well as they came here and helped lay hundreds of plants. So that's kind of the where we got everything together.
It was just kind of amazing on the planting day, the number of kids that all came down here. And
yeah.
I know, Dan, you're not a plant guy, but it was still fun to install those plants with the kids.
Yeah.
So we're out here with Allison Klein with Kearney Public Schools. Mm-hmm. Can you explain a little bit about your role with this project at the Kearney Rain Garden?
Yep, I'd be happy to. So I was contacted by the City of Kearney, and they talked about proposing the rain garden, and I was really excited to be a part of it for the educational component. And as the project progressed, it wasn't just what is a rain garden and the ecological service that a rain garden provides. It was also about the service learning project, the opportunity to be part of installing a rain garden, and then the opportunity to bring in other departments, not just the science or agriculture departments, but our graphic arts department and other teachers as well. Well, in the design and development, UNL they were great at designing the components of the rain garden for Kearney High School, it was really the installation component that we worked with. And so our summer program called Bearcat Scholars, where we have incoming freshmen apply to the program, and we spend the month of June 4 weeks working with them and developing a community of learners. Those were the kids that worked really strong on this project. So in June, when we actually installed it, working with Steinbrink Landscaping, those were the students that came out to help. And it was great because they were exposed to different careers. They were exposed to also the value of service in the community and being part of what a community means. So we really enjoyed that. And then the sign was developed by our Bearcat Design Project. So I worked with a student in the content on it, which was great. We were able to talk about what rain gardens do, and then he worked with his teacher on actually creating the sign for us.
Can you tell us a little bit about Installation Day? I know I was really amazed to see the number of students went out here, but can you describe a little bit about what happened on that day?
Sure. So Installation Day was last June, and the City of Kearney organized drinks for our kids and some fun things, and then Steinbrink was on hand to help lay out the plants. And then we went over how you would go about planting all of the different species that we have in the rain garden, and then divided the kids up, and they had a great time. They were able to get dirty and get into the ground and have that awesome experience. And it went really fast. So we had about 20 Bearcat Scholar students that participated, and then some staff from Steinbrink and the City of Kearney, and it was just in a short morning we had everything done.
I know I was really amazed because some of the kids took their shoes off
right.
and were walking around barefoot, and their shirts were just dirty, but
they were
having a good time.
Yeah, they were. And a rain garden, planting, it's a physical activity, and it was really great to help get students that live a more urban life into the dirt and experience that. So I intend to use it in a similar way that the City of Kearney does, as an example of an exemplary model. And then we have projects at the Kearney High School where we're planning on doing different landscaping. And so we'll be using this as a teaching tool, as how did they do it and what was working and how would we modify it for our space. So we'll be using it as that exemplary. And then we'll also be using it as a functioning rain garden, where we'll be able to use applied science, like calculating the volume of the field and then deciding how large it had to be, and then testing our experiments against how it was actually done.
So what are some things you would tell other teachers that might be interested in starting a rain garden in their own schools?
So this particular design worked really well for this space. So I would encourage them to look at their schoolyard and recognize it doesn't have to be this big in order to be effective. And then also make sure that when they're choosing plants and hardscape material, that they're thinking about the upkeep and the maintenance, and that you get all of the people involved on board. So if it's your buildings and grounds or your superintendent and your school board, that they understand that you've taken all of those things into consideration before you propose an idea. So the planting of the rain garden happened at a time period where we weren't able to involve students in a traditional classroom. Right? So that's a challenge that we had to overcome, but having Bearcat Scholars take a more active role was a benefit and definitely a perk of it. As well, the timeline, making sure that when you're developing a project like this, that you understand that it's going to take a year to go from planning to planting. But at the same time, when you're able to involve many different organizations, it's easier to take that long-term view and still have momentum to get it finished.
So can you talk a little bit about some of the impacts of the projects on the students and on the curriculum, or on how it impacted the school?
Well, the Bearcat Design sign is a huge success. To see that product go from a design board and a conversation to installed. So that was a huge success. And then having a physical product that the students can walk up to and say, I helped do that, is powerful. Being able to send a picture of the sign to the students and the parents so that our parents and community members see the products that we're making, that's huge. Being able to not only say, we did this in theory or we talked about this in class, but they'll be able to drive by this rain garden for years to come and say, I had part in that.